So this is how we only use a plan service account when we are on a pull request, and then apply service account with higher permissions when we are on the main branch. Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Anto. Today we're going to see how we can automate infrastructure changes using GitHub Actions. So this is going to be based on the excellent tutorial I found on the HashiCorp website, where they create a GitHub action, and they've added a few steps in the workflow to use the workload identity federation in GCP, so we can also authenticate against the cloud provider without using any service account key. So in a previous video, I've already covered the Google configuration, so I will go faster on that and we'll focus more on the workflow files. But don't worry, because there is a link down in the description with the reference to all the commands that you need to reproduce this demo on your own environment. So now, before we start looking at the workflow file and how to do this, I want to explain what's the goal for today. So I want to create a workflow file where we have on the pull request, we have a way to plan without having the permissions to apply. And when we merge our pull request, we have a service account will be used to apply the changes. So what we need are two service accounts, one for apply, that is going to be only a read-only service account with write permission on the bucket for the state. And then we have another service account that has access to the bucket plus to the resources that we have to create or delete, essentially the resources that we have to manage. So I've created a small Terraform code base that creates service accounts, so we can try to see how we get the plan executed and how the apply will get executed when merged. So now let's have a look at the workflow file. So this is the workflow. It gets triggered on two events: when there is a push on the main branch and when there is a pull request against the main branch. The job instead requires the following permissions. So the content read is to get access to the actual repo, so you can do the checkout. And then there is the ID token. This is write permissions is needed because we need to allow the auth action to impersonate service accounts. And then we have the pull request write that I'm going to show you in a second. This is to add our plan as a comment in the pull request. So we need this to be write as well. Now, as you can see, we have two steps that we use to authenticate against the Google provider. So here we're using the workload identity provider that has been configured. I will briefly show this in a second. And then we are specifying the service account. So we have a service account for the plan and the service account for the apply. And as you can see, these two actions are invoked only based on this condition. So the first one, so the planner, is only executed when we are not on main, and the applier is executed when we are on main. So now this workflow configures the Terraform and then does a number of steps to validate our Terraform code and the formatting of our code. So this step is validating the formatting. Then we do the init. So in the init, we are passing also the backend configuration. So here we specify our bucket. So our service account, of course, need to have access to this bucket, read and write access to this bucket. Then we have another validation step. And now this is where it gets interesting, because we have our plan step. This is doing the Terraform plan, and it's also continuing on error. So if the plan fails, we still capture the output. And now this is the thing I like the most. Here we are using the GitHub script. So this one, based on the event, if we are on a pull request, we can capture the plan from the previous step. So steps, plan, outputs, standard out. And then we store it in this environment variable. And then we use this environment variable inside this script. And this script is simply updating the pull request with a comment where we put the status of the initialization, the validation outcome, and then we put the plan. So here we're going to see all the resources we are planning. Then at the end of this, we have, based on if the plan failed, we can fail here. And this instead is to apply when we are on main. So now let's see how that works by creating a change in our repo and opening a pull request. So our repo has a Terraform folder, and inside the Terraform folder, we have a service account. What we can do, we can modify this by adding a second service account. We call this service account 2, and then service account 2. Now we commit this change on a new branch and we open a pull request. So now this should trigger an action. So this is now authenticating using Google Cloud. So the identity we are using is the plan identity. So we are initializing and we can see in the plan that we want to create a second service account. So now if we look at the pull request, the cool thing is that we also see the output of our plan in the pull request. This is very cool because it simplifies the life of reviewers of your pull request. And you also get the output of every single other step in our job. So at this point, what we can do, we are happy with the result. We merge the pull request. And another job should be triggered. So if we go in action, we see another job being triggered. And this one should actually apply. So instead of getting the planner service account, we should get the other service account. So we have the TF apply service account here. Now we're doing the init validation plan again. And then the apply is finally applying. So this is how we only use a plan service account when we are on a pull request, and then apply service account with higher permissions when we are on the main branch. Now let's quickly have a look at the configuration on the Google site. So as I said, all these configuration files can be found down in the description. So what I'm doing here is creating a bucket to store the state. And then we have a configuration for the workload identity pools and the provider. So this one is explained in details in other videos, but is pretty much the same. So we have different attributes mapping. So we have one for the subject, one for the workflow. So we inspect the job workflow reference. And then we have another one for the event name. So this is when we have a pull request. This value will be pull request. And we map this when we allow the impersonation on the service account. So here we create two service accounts, one for planning, one for applying, and then we do the permissions to operate. So what we are saying is that these service accounts are object admin on the buckets, and only one of them is service account admin. So now what we do here instead is adding the IAM policy binding to the service account that are for planning. So what we say here is that planning can be impersonated, so workload identity user, by any identity that comes from the workload identity pool, GitHub, and with the following attributes. So when the event name is pull request. Note that this one is allowing every single pull request from any repo, so you may want to add additional attributes into this validation. And then for the apply one, we have something similar. So we have an apply service account. We have a workload identity user role assigned to any member that comes from this identity pool. And this mapping this attribute with the workflow ref, where the repo, the organization in GitHub, and the repository and the workflow file are these ones, in only when running on the main branch. So I made quite a few videos about workload identity federation, from very detailed videos on how to do that by simply using the APIs to another video where I use the GitHub action. So you can find them on my channel. Let me know if you have questions. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one. Bye.